there are many misconceptions, primarily parents who aren't sure about Waldorf. It's because they think it's an art school, and we do absolutely incorporate the arts, but there's a very good reason for that. Research has shown that there are 5 things that increase brain cells, and that is the music, art, nature, movement, and personal connections to adults. And we have all of that at our school. So yes, we do have a lot of art and music and nature, but they are tools to deepen the material with the students. It's not that we expect to turn out artists. And you know, we have equally the same number of alumni that go into science and business as well. So that would be the first misconception, is that it's an art school.
In this video, you'll meet Jennifer Deeth, who's the admissions manager at Waldorf Academy in Toronto, Ontario. And in this video, you'll hear her talk about what drew her to the Waldorf philosophy and how Waldorf Academy puts its own unique culture onto the Waldorf philosophy itself. You'll also hear her talk about what a student does on a typical day, as well as why certain years are particularly beneficial under the Waldorf education. So why don't we start with 3 things that you love about your job?
The 3 things I love about my job are the philosophy. The Waldorf philosophy always spoke to me as a parent. It's why I left my former career and went into education, and it inspires me every day. The second thing I love about my job is the community. The families, my colleagues, and even the larger movement are a wonderful community to collaborate and thrive together. Thirdly, what I love about my job is that my 2 own children went to this school. So it holds a special, very special memory for me, and a deep bond.
So that's interesting that you left your former career to enter into education because of this school. What was that journey for you, and what made you make that decision?
Well, it was an easy decision for me because I had been in another industry that took many hours, and raising a family, I knew that I couldn't spend those hours at work. And so it just offered me a time to reflect on goals and purpose. And for me, working in education and with students is a really noble pursuit. And so I came late into it, but became fully immersed.
And what is it about admissions that you found a particular fit for you, and what do you love about that position?
Well, what I love about admissions is I get to meet the new families, and I've been in their shoes before, so I do understand the journey. And even though maybe it came to me through a different path, the longer I've been there and also observed my own children and the trajectory of so many families, it's such a big investment for families. And I really am so passionate and positive about it, but also am very respectful of what each family is looking for, what might be their limitations or their wishes, and yet maybe they can't come to the school. And also just ensuring the right fit. It's a great conversation to have with families. You're the first person they meet, and I feel I have a lot to offer that's very supportive with families. As well, when I first came to the school, I was surprised that there wasn't a long wait list. And so it's always been my goal is to develop that long wait list.
The first answer that you gave us is the philosophy of the Waldorf Academy and the Waldorf philosophy in general. Mm-hmm. If parents are watching this video, it's likely that they are familiar with the Waldorf mind frame mm-hmm. and philosophy already. But in your own words, what does Waldorf mean to you?
Well, Waldorf, for me, in my own words, and I'll be completely honest, I was always attracted to it from an academic perspective because it is holistic and looks deeply at each student and what their unique capacities are. And it speaks to that. And with the student-teacher relationships, I felt that as a student going to this school, that you were truly going to be seen and encouraged and challenged to take risks. So for me, it felt that was a deeper academic approach to achieving whatever goals you may have later in life. And that is what attracted me.
Right.
In my words.
Yes. And how does Waldorf Academy, your specific school, put its own personality or culture onto the Waldorf philosophy?
Absolutely. Every Waldorf school is guided by principals, but they have that freedom to respond to their culture, their climate, their community. And our school is located downtown Toronto. It's a multicultural city. People are really busy. You usually have two parent incomes. They're working hard. So we have a bit of a buzz in our school that you might not find in other Waldorf schools that are out in more remote areas. But even that is relative. We've had our city councilor come and visit the school who thought it was like a learning sanctuary, very quiet, whereas we've had other visitors come in and just think, oh, there's this energy. The other aspect to our school is that we're very innovative. We have a young faculty. They're very experiential themselves, incredibly collaborative. And so we've initiated a lot of new programs, but we're also quite reflective in terms of, hey, if it didn't work, let's try again.
And what misconceptions do you think people may have about the Waldorf philosophy, or even the idea of investing this kind of financial investment, this time, this focus on education for such early years as preschool or kindergarten?
Right, right. Yeah, no, it's interesting. A lot of families might think it's more worthwhile to invest in the later years in high school, but for me, it was always intuitively in the younger years because of that relationship to learning. It begins in kindergarten and in the lower school. And so for an education that focuses on the joy of learning and lifelong learning, that investment is the rest of their life. And so that's what I would say to parents who are thinking about whether to put the investment in at this end or later. I absolutely think it's a worthwhile investment in the younger years. There are many misconceptions, primarily parents who aren't sure about Waldorf. It's because they think it's an art school, and we do absolutely incorporate the arts, but there's a very good reason for that. Research has shown that there are 5 things that increase brain cells, and that is the music, art, nature, movement, and personal connections to adults. And we have all of that at our school. So yes, we do have a lot of art and music and nature, but they are tools to deepen the material with the students. It's not that we expect to turn out artists. And you know, we have equally the same number of alumni that go into science and business as well. So that would be the first misconception, is that it's an art school. The second misconception is the approach to reading and literacy in the younger years. Definitely our kindergarten is more aligned with, let's say, the schools in Finland. So we don't focus on the academics until grade 1. So our kindergarten is play-based. But a lot of people assume that means learning isn't taking place. But we absolutely feel the right kind of learning is taking place, the foundations to deepen the academics in the later grades. And the third misconception is the literacy piece, because we do allow more time from grade 1 to 3 for it to really develop from an imaginative approach. We deepen many aspects to literacy through our oral storytelling, but through writing comprehension. So although it might be a slightly slower approach, it really levels out by grade 4, where in many cases our students in grade 4 are, you know, winning writing competitions that we enter. So it's a misconception that the academics aren't as strong, but I think we foster just as much conventional forms of academic achievement, but a slightly different approach.
Mm. And as admissions manager, in the applicants that you see and the students that you accept into the school, do you see that full journey happening from preschool up until grade 8, or are there specific years that you find students coming to the school for different reasons?
You know, I mean, absolutely, we would love to see that journey from preschool to grade 8, but I'd say it ends up being about half, because Toronto can be a tough city for families to live, and so we've had many relocate. We also attract families from abroad because there are Waldorf schools in over 69 countries. So it is a worldwide movement, and we can attract people coming here for a fellowship for 2 or 3 years. So we do have a bit of fluidity. We also have those families that stay from preschool to grade 8, but also we get a lot of, we have a rolling enrollment. So as long as we have space, we welcome families to join. And that quite typically is obviously in junior kindergarten, grade 1, and then quite a bit around grade 3 and grade 4, and definitely the end of grade 6 going into middle school.
And why is middle school a productive age to get a Waldorf education, just for those last 2 years, grade 7 and 8?
Well, our grade 7 and 8 program is really fantastic and so deep with academic subjects that prepare them for high school in ways that build capacities rather than memorization. So a lot of parents see it as a good, kind of a good intersection between after finishing grade 6 and before going to high school to build up self-esteem in certain subjects that their child may not be experiencing currently, and also to build up confidence around key subjects like math, self-esteem, presentation, by having this smaller approach to the middle school. A lot of families have referred to it being a kinder, gentler approach for middle school that they really appreciate and want their child to experience, rather than a larger middle school that can be, you know, for some students can get easily lost in that.
And if you were to ask a student at Waldorf Academy what a typical day looks like, what do you think they would say?
Okay, well, I'll start with the younger years. They would start with outdoor play in our naturalized backyard. And then they would be called in at 8:35, and they would have to line up outside their door and take their turn to shake hands with the teacher, who would look them directly in the eye and have a little check-in at that point. They'd come in, put away their belongings, and then we have what is called a warm-up. So it could be a mental math warm-up. It's always after they recite a verse to begin the day and greet each other in a circle. So that's part of how we're building the collective, the emotional intelligence. Just a verbal check-in with everyone is really big for young kids. And so after they have a warm-up, we go into what is called a main lesson block, and that's a unique feature at Waldorf schools. So they focus on a particular subject for 4 weeks for 2 hours. So within that 2-hour time frame, the teacher will tell a story that relates to a new concept that they're bringing that week. And then they'll have some time to work in their own, they create their own textbook. So they'll bring out what we call main lesson books. And through that, they're going to be writing notes about the story they heard, drawing images, at the same time learning artistic skills, getting spatially orientated to the paper. And in certain cases, they might collaborate on what they're going to write. They might work together as a class on the board. So they have this main lesson work. And then out of that, they'll have a few multidisciplinary approaches that will include, so we've already had some art, we've already had some music. They might do something experiential related to it. And it might be just simply a good old fashioned, you know, rote memory lecture format as well. And then they will move into small groups and have smaller projects together and then come back as a whole. And once that main lesson is complete, they have snack and recess, and they'll have snack with it could be a cup of tea or a glass of water with their teacher and a snack they brought from home. And then they go outside for recess, and they might join 1 or 2 other grades. And then when they come back, we move into our specialty subjects. And those are led most often by different specialists we have at the school. They'll be sure to welcome the new teacher when they come in. So they'll do a formal greeting, and then they'll have their 40 to 50 minutes on, it could be French, it could be handwork or woodwork, it could be phys ed, or in the younger years, we call it games. And after 2 periods, then they'll move into their lunch, and they'll have lunch with their class teacher. They'll have a lot of time outside to play, and it could be at Spadina House on the grounds, they could go to the ravine, and then they'll have 2 periods before the end of the day. And again, they could be, knitting their socks if they were in grade 5, or they could be playing different games in the gym. And then at the end of the day, they'll close with a verse with their class teacher, say goodbye, and then they have their chores to do to maintain the classroom. And then after school, we have a variety of extracurricular activities as well, more so in the upper grades where we have the competitive sports leagues.
Busy day.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And would you say, is there a type of child or student that wouldn't excel at Waldorf Academy?
Um, I'd like to think that every student would eventually excel, and it's really a healthy, holistic approach for all children. But there are challenging, in particular, it can be challenging for the child that's used to a lot of technology in the younger years because we don't have that in the classrooms until later. And as well for a child that's been used to a lot of independent work, but maybe isn't used to working with others and collaborating, because there's that whole balance of emotional intelligence, of compromise and what's equitable and how to advocate for yourself. So if you have a child who's quite fixed and independent, that will be a challenge, but not that we couldn't work with that child. It just initially might not be a great fit. And then the other challenge we have had is if a child requires more direct support than we can offer, because we are limited. We don't have EAs in the classroom, but we do have a small education support team. And so sometimes we can balance that with small group and indirect work in the classroom, and maybe a family can support it outside of the school, but that can be a challenge as well. And thirdly, if a child it takes a lot of internal motivation to get the most out of this education. But again, we could work also with the child around that as well too.
So there are challenges, but they also might be areas of opportunity, say if a parent wanted to develop an area of their child with a Waldorf education.
Absolutely. It takes a really good partnership with the family, and then together, many challenges can be overcome and a real positive relationship to support who that child is. Because the other thing that can happen is a parent may not be necessarily attracted to the education, but their child is needing something different. And it really speaks to their child, who might be more creative and artistic and just needing a slightly different atmosphere within the learning environment.
Right. And speaking of families, is there a type of family that is drawn to Waldorf Academy?
Yes, I think it's a family. Well, they're a family from all backgrounds, whether ethnic, race, economic backgrounds. We have a strong affordable tuition program, but at the same time, it does work well with a family who is more interested in the character development and community, rather than really worried about, is my child going to get into the best and top university? That would be the main difference.
Mm-hmm. And what is the relationship like between the school and families? Is there a expectation of involvement in school life and school culture, or is it more up to the parents themselves, depending on their time?
Well, on one level, it is up to the parent themselves, but they will always get more out of it if they choose wisely what they want to participate in. You can definitely participate a lot in our community, but you can also be selective. So in terms of maybe it's more board work that you'd be interested in, or maybe you're better with creating the Excel spreadsheets, and another parent is better at creating the social potluck get-togethers for their class. So we have class reps in each class that work to support what the teacher may need and also can communicate to the other parents. And so they could just be really good delegators. And then we have other families who give a lot in maybe the first few years, but who knows, maybe they're getting more interested in their career and they're needing more time to develop that. So they might go away for a bit, but it's really a give and take. We do actually ask that parents commit to 3 parent evenings a year, and that is because not many of the parents have been through a Waldorf education. And so what might seem, warm and nurturing in the younger years, that could become irritating in the lower school years. So we'd want to make sure they attend parent evenings to learn more about the curriculum and the stages of child development. And so the more they understand, the less they'll be unsure and sitting on the fence, but really able to enjoy the education.
And how does Waldorf address parent conflicts with the school? Say if there is a misunderstanding or a miscommunication that arises.
Well, you know, communication and how we communicate to each other is something we want to model to the students, because the goal is to make the world a better place. And so we all want to work on developing positive, nonviolent communication. And so the first part is for parents to understand, because we don't have a principal per se. So they always go to the teacher first. And we always ask that everyone assumes the best of everyone's intentions. So first you'd go to the teacher, but if they did go to the teacher and it wasn't resolved, we have a variety of other channels that they can then go to. The other piece we work in terms of around communication with parents is sometimes it can be related to other students in the classroom. So again, having those parent evenings where we discuss strategies ahead of time. How do we want to honor birthdays in this class? You know, what kind of, are there any guidelines we want around play dates? So just having those shared agreements can be really helpful for healthy communication later on down the road.
And I wanted to ask you to explain further what your school's relationship to technology is, because it is different than other schools that have it heavily incorporated into the daily curriculum.
Absolutely. So to us, it's all about bringing in technology at the right time. So it's not that we're against technology. It's just that right now in the younger years and in the lower school, we don't see that it is actually needed for the capacities that they need to develop. You know, we want them to develop from real experiences, their own creative powers, their own innovative projects, and really focus on their own imagination. And sometimes if you have a lot of technology, it can rob that innovative component. And it also isn't necessary in terms of bringing the actual benchmarks that we want to achieve in terms of certain academic achievements. So in the younger years, we don't have technology, but it's not to say we're against it. It's just bringing it in at the right time. The other component is with storytelling, which we use a lot of in our delivery of certain ideas that we want to bring the children. They need to take those stories into their sleep and kind of live with it for a bit and take in the concepts that they're learning in the class. And if they're going home right onto a video game or, you know, using their computers, it's not going to sink. So it really isn't, they're really not getting the full benefit of the curriculum. Now that said, going into the middle school, we introduced a few years ago an innovative Waldorf program called Cyber Civics, and that deals specifically with digital citizenship and privacy. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, we are responsive to the times and what our community is going through. So we saw that that was a really necessary step to take with children. And so that's introduced in grade 6. And then also by grade 8, we will be working with, you know, Word and Excel and PowerPoint presentations, because they have a massive independent grade 8 project where they will be presenting to 150 people in our gym. And so being comfortable with technology on the stage is one of our rites of passage as we get to grade 8.
If Waldorf Academy was a person, what personality traits would it have?
Well, right off the top, I would say equanimity. We definitely need that in this climate more than ever. And it also helps us to stay true to our values. We really want to stay true to child development. And there can be certain trends and certain new innovations that are really being pushed. But if we stay true with equanimity, we can be sure that we're keeping the child at the center. So that would be the key personality trait I would give to our school.
And when you think about Waldorf Academy in the next 5 or 10 years, what areas do you see it expanding with or growing with or developing or innovating in?
In terms of growth in the next 5 years, I would really love to see an increase in what we call DEI scholarships, so diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships, to reach a broader representation of the Toronto population. So that's one area I'm really looking forward to, and we've also initiated discussions in that area as well. The other area I would love to see growth in is an innovative building to match the curriculum. You know, many Waldorf schools have their own particular architectural design, and they've had land given to them, but we are urban, and we love being urban because most children are going to be living in an urban center. But it would be really great if in the next 5 years we could make our building, more environmental, having a rooftop garden, beehives. I would love to see that growth in 5 years. And I think just really healthy salaries for faculty that, they can afford to purchase a home in Toronto. I think teachers around the world are underpaid, and it's a really good, it's very indicative of what you value. And we as a society, if we can ensure that teachers are getting the right salary to live a comfortable life here in Toronto.
And what advice do you have for parents who are in their school search right now?
The advice I have for parents searching for a school is two things. Number one, visit the school. That can make all the difference. My own children have, searched high schools and universities that we had on our list but hadn't really considered before. We completely changed our minds as soon as we visited the school. So I highly recommend going to visit a school, ideally when there are students in class, and that might be a challenge in the upcoming year. But to visit the school. And the second piece of advice I have is to be open to alternative forms of education, because your child might be asking for something different. And even though you thrived in a particular educational model, your child might need something different. And so just to be open and exploratory in that area.
And with your knowledge of the industry and of how your school operates, your own search for school options for your children, is there a red flag that would ring alarm bells in your head that you would encourage other parents, without your frame of mind, without your insider knowledge, that they should be aware of?
Well, I guess a red flag, and I don't know if that's necessarily the right term, but it would be a lot of parents worry so much about their children that it actually can inhibit them from developing their true potential. So I would, love to tell those parents to visualize your child from a place of strength. And it'd be really interesting to see how their child progresses. So, for example, if you have a child and when they come home, you're always asking as a parent, how was your day? And you're really worried about them. Well, right away, they've got a great audience. And so they're going to be, depending on their personality, they might tell you all kinds of sad stories. But in reality, when the teacher sees them at school and with their friends, it's a very different child. And the second part of that is children are different one-on-one at home or one-on-one with a tutor, because you don't have that social element. And so yes, children will perform really well one-on-one, but they need that social interaction as well, because those are necessary skills to lead a fulfilling adult life.